Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're breaking down an absolutely massive, high-stakes psychological experiment. Just imagine gathering 100 sets of identical twins into a single room and forcing them to battle it out for $250,000. Well, that's exactly what Mr. Beast engineered. It's this fascinating test of sibling bonds, communication, and just sheer willpower. We're going to unpack the brilliant game design and the psychological survival funnel that took 200 identical faces down to just one winning pair.
But real quick, before we dive into the madness, you gotta hit that subscribe button for the Titan Player channel. Seriously, do it right now. Because, in the cutthroat spirit of today's explainer, if you aren't subscribed to Titan Player, you might just face some random algorithmic elimination yourself. Consider that your official warning. All right, let's jump right into the intense reality these twins had to face.
So we start at the very top of the funnel with the number 100. That's 100 sets of identical twins, each isolated in their own separate cubes. And right out of the gate, the stakes are established with this incredibly brutal rule. If either twin simply crosses the red line at the edge of their cube, it's an instant double elimination. Your fate is literally entirely tethered to the person standing right next to you. If your twin messes up, you go home too. No second chances. Okay, phase 1, the ultimate twin test, focusing on memory. Here's how the mechanics of this first game actually worked. The entire room would flash this sequence of colors. The twins then had to work together to memorize that exact order and punch it into a shared tablet. If they got it wrong, instantly eliminated. And what's really wild here is how rapidly the difficulty scaled up. They started with a totally manageable 6 colors. Easy, right? But then it jumped to 15 and eventually a totally mind-melting 27 colors in a row. Under that kind of intense cognitive stress, the so-called unbreakable twin bond really started to crack. We saw these intense sibling arguments breaking out, just twins screaming at each other about whether the sequence ended on green or yellow, completely losing their cool. And that pressure just cooked the competition right down. The memory game acted as this brutal filter, wiping out 28 pairs almost immediately, just from a breakdown in shared memory and trust. So our survivor ticker drops down to 72 remaining pairs. Moving on to phase 2, blindfolds and sabotage. This was a pure communication test. Now this challenge was explicitly designed to be cutthroat. Exactly half the room was destined to be sent packing here. One twin is completely blindfolded and has to stack 10 small cubes. The other twin is totally hands-off, simply holding the base tray and providing verbal directions. If even a single cube drops, they are both eliminated. And to make it even more nerve-wracking, they were directly competing against the pair in the cube right next to them. But this brilliantly illustrates what happens when two people are just perfectly in sync. We saw these moments of pure, unadulterated twin telepathy. Literally, one twin was noting that his brother just directed him with his head, almost as if he could actually see him through the blindfold. It was this staggering display of nonverbal communication that only comes from a lifetime of shared experiences. On the flip side, not everyone had that telepathy. Some twins just resorted to pure psychological warfare. Instead of focusing on carefully building their own stack, they started screaming at the top of their lungs just to distract the twins next to them. The whole strategy shifted from, let's build our tower, to let's completely sabotage our neighbors. It just became this chaotic, incredibly loud fight for survival. By the time this buzzer-beater block challenge wrapped up, the room was perfectly sliced in half. The survivor ticker drops again, leaving us with just 36 elite pairs moving into the second day of the experiment. And that brings us to phase 3, greed and social politics. Day 2 begins. So the crucial point is, we hit a brilliant game theory dilemma here. Every pair was offered $5,000 in cold, hard cash, sitting right in front of them. Option A, you take the $5,000, but you accept a 50% chance of being randomly eliminated right then and there. Option B, you leave the money, you take $0, but you completely guarantee your safety for a shot at the grand prize of $250,000. Ask yourself right now, if you were there with your sibling, what would you choose? Well, the temptation of instant cash was just way too much for some. 8 pairs actually let their greed win and took the money. And because of that massive 50-50 risk, a lottery machine randomly spat out names, resulting in exactly 4 pairs being brutally eliminated on the spot. Their greed literally cost them a shot at life-changing money. But the social experiment definitely didn't stop there. The next phase handed the power entirely over to the twins themselves. They were given a choice. They could either all vote green to move on together peacefully or vote red to eliminate the biggest threat. And when you look at how the votes shook out, it's a stunning example of mob mentality. The very outspoken, highly competitive Collins twins had made themselves a huge target by yelling and celebrating way too early, and the group just dogpiled them. 26 votes to eliminate the Collins twins, while almost everyone else got 0. It really proves that in a survival scenario, blending in is often way safer than standing out.
Phase 4. The grueling waiting game. A brutal test of reaction time. Here are the mechanics that made this challenge so absolutely devilish. Over the course of several hours, the lights in the room would randomly flash red. The very first pair to tap their tablet was safe, and they moved into the top 10. But, and this is a massive but, if you panic-pressed that button and weren't the fastest, you were instantly eliminated. This forced a terrifying balancing act. Do you risk going early against everyone else's fresh reflexes? Or do you wait it out for hours, risking that you might miss your window entirely because you fell asleep? It was pure, distilled anxiety.
Through 10 nerve-wracking rounds of jump scares and agonizing patience, the herd was thinned down once again. We are officially down to the top 10 pairs of twins.
To cut this elite group in half, the experiment brought back the blindfolds for a giant game of bowling. One twin was blindfolded, the other gave verbal cues, and they had exactly 3 frames to knock down a massive setup of 105 pins. But the real genius here was step 1. They actually got to choose their opponents. It forced the twins to assess the room, calculate who the absolute weakest link was, or boldly target their biggest threats to just take them out of the game right then and there. And just like that, the bowling matches finalized our survivor ticker before the finale. From the original 100 pairs that started this crazy journey, we are down to just 5, the absolute most resilient, communicative, and, honestly, lucky twins in the room. And finally, Phase 5, the final bluff, a game of pure social deduction. Okay, let's dive into this final game mechanic because it is brilliant. 5 briefcases. Only one holds the $250,000 check. Each pair looks inside a case, hides the contents, and then the entire group argues and votes on who has to open theirs. If you're voted to open your case and it's empty, you're out. The tension here is astronomical. Think about it. If you have the money, you have to bluff perfectly so people don't vote for you. If you don't have it, you have to scramble to deflect attention somewhere else. And that immense pressure led to the most jaw-dropping moment of the entire explainer. One of the Beatty twins, trying to pull off this super bold bluff, proudly announced to the group, "I have it." But his poker face was so bad, and his energy was just so incredibly nervous that it backfired spectacularly. When the votes were tallied, he was eliminated. And the absolute craziest twist, one of the votes against him actually came from his own twin brother. Literally, his bluff was so unconvincing that his own flesh and blood couldn't read him and accidentally ended their game. Just wild. Round after round, the briefcases were shuffled, the bluffs continued, and pairs were voted out until only one number remained, the number 1. Through memory challenges, blind trust, sheer greed, grueling patience, and deception, the Moores twins successfully survived the funnel. They held their nerve in that final briefcase round and walked away with the grand prize of $250,000. Which leaves us with this final thought. We just watched how extreme pressure, financial greed, and intense psychological games can fracture even the closest biological bonds on Earth. We saw some twins communicate without a single word, while others yelled, sabotaged, or literally voted each other out. So look at the person you are closest to in your life right now and ask yourself, would your relationship survive the ultimate $250,000 test? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Make sure you've subscribed to the Titan Player channel, and as always, keep learning.